The IRCOM model is a transitional housing model that is coupled with programs and services for newly arrived immigrants and refugees. We have two primary locations, one located at 215 Isabel in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the other one at 95 Ellen Street. The key features of the IRCOM model is the coupling of safe, affordable, transitional long-term housing, so housing of up to 3 years for families who've been in Canada less than 6 months, and it's coupled together with on-site and community-based accessible programs and services that help with the family's meaningful integration. And the model is holistic, so we look at the entirety of the family and their entire needs, and it's also wraparound, which means that whatever might be the need of the youngest child, whether it's early childhood development or support in language acquisition or preparation for success in school, we're able to help with that. If it's the youth who need access to homework support or recreation programming or mentorship for the future, we do that. If it's the parenting or exploring employment opportunities, we do that. So we look after the family in their entirety in a very intense way, wherein we're not just concerned with their immediate settlement needs, their most basic needs, but we're deeply invested in their emotional integration, that they feel loved, supported, valued, that they have voice, opportunity to lead, and that they truly are the architects of their life beyond IRCOM. IRCOM House is home at any given point in time to usually between 16 and 20 different nations from all over the world. In order to be eligible to live within IRCOM House, you have to have been in Canada less than 6 months at the time that you apply. You also need to be low income and you need to be a family, which means that you either have children who are school aged or children who are between the age of 18 and 21 and enrolled in full-time high school. We do focus specifically on screening our applications through a needs-based matrix. So many families are very fortunate to have a receiving family in Winnipeg or extended family, someone who's able to secure, adequate housing for them quickly and help them gain employment. But there are many families who are coming in who are immediately very isolated, and those families are the ones that need IRCOM to step into the role of a receiving family and provide all of those supports for that first period of time. Our housing facility is always at full capacity. When it's not at full capacity, we're simply turning a suite over, so cleaning it, painting it, and getting it ready for the next family. All of our programs and workshops are always at full capacity, and we have to deliver increasingly more programs. So we do a fair amount of evening programming, we do weekend programming, and we do a good amount of daytime programming as well to meet various needs of those who are working or studying. This model of long-term safe transitional housing coupled with programs and services is unique in all of Canada. There are existing transitional housing facilities throughout Canada that might be 6 to 12 months, that we've heard may go as long as 18 months. So to the best of our knowledge, IRCOM at 3 years is the longest transitional housing facility in all of Canada. The 3 years of living at IRCOM can be sort of likened to living in a college of life in Canada, essentially. So you live in the building, but on the main floor there are staff who are representative of the community to which you belong, who speak over 40 different languages. There is an IRCOM staff member on site 24 hours a day. Our families are able to come down and speak to staff who are either able to provide the service themselves immediately or are able to assess the needs together with the community member and then provide a meaningful referral. And when I say meaningful referral, consistent with our model and our values, we, for example, don't provide the families with a furnished apartment. So when the family moves in, the apartment is entirely empty. Our role in helping our families is to make them aware of where locally They can find furniture that's either free or very low cost. Our role is sometimes to accompany the families. Our role is to help them plan the logistics of having everything delivered and heat treated before it enters their unit. So our role is to journey beside them, but not to do it for them. So those more medium-term goals, if we could say, are really to begin to, as mindfully and as deliberately as possible, to equip our families with skill sets and also with confidence to look for all the help that they need independently and beyond our walls. There are a number of programs and services that IRCOM offers that are uniquely offered just to tenants, so those who are living with us. But the majority of our programs are offered to community members that are not just living in the two housing facilities, but are in the surrounding community. So many might see themselves transition out of the housing facility, but continue in the English language programs and the money management programs. So the ability to continue to support them beyond their tenancy, it's built into the model. And I think the premise that the vast majority, something like about 80% of IRCOM staff have lived experience as immigrants or refugees. That is integral to the strength of this model. Part of the IRCOM House model is that we generally operate with a 2-to-1 ratio of volunteers to staff. So there are twice the number of community members directly involved in programming, delivery and provision. In fact, giving well over 10,000 hours annually to supporting our community. And it's an intended component of the model because it means that the broader community has a stake in the well-being of our families and they become the ambassadors for our story. The amount of community members that provide us with their volunteer time and who have been with us for years and years is critical because there's continuity and there's investment, and there are emerging relationships that, again, surpass the time at IRCOM, where families who are matched together continue to be together a decade later. And now these are established friendships and they're relationships of trust. This model is heavily partner dependent. So as an example, Welcome Place, Accueil Francophone, those are our referral partners that bring government assisted refugees to IRCOM House. We work with partners at Mount Carmel Clinic or at Aurora Family Therapy for any kind of intense psychosocial supports that families need. We work with financial institutions to support our financial confidence and financial literacy money management programming. Part of our expertise is in knowing where the service exists beyond us and then meaningfully connecting families and making sure that they can navigate broader social services in the community. IRCOM is extraordinarily fortunate as a community to enjoy the support of many diverse funders. So at this moment in time, there are over 45 unique funding sources to this model, everywhere from everyone from the federal government to several provincial departments to the city of Winnipeg to private foundations to donors to individuals, many based in Winnipeg, but also some based nationally. We have a variety of evaluative practices, including focus groups, including surveys, including feedback mechanisms, one of which is a tenant exit interview, asking them specifically which programs had the greatest impact, where they thought that we could improve things for future families like their own arriving, whether or not our programs fostered a sense of dependence or independence in them. And both building facilities have a tenant leader group. So the tenant leader groups are usually They could be as large as a dozen tenants that represent multiple communities within the building. And the role of the tenant leaders is to provide feedback on the programming, on its delivery, on its effectiveness, on its design. And our other evaluations, for example, in the money management program, is we sort of get a base assessment of where participants are in terms of their knowledge of Canadian financial systems. And then at the end of it, we measure against what they may have learned in the last 10 weeks of programming. And several years ago, we were fortunate to partner with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, and they identified existing IRCOM tenants who they would then follow for 3 years as they lived at IRCOM, and then as they transitioned beyond IRCOM to see what the impacts of living at IRCOM was on their long-term integration. And they kept with the same group and kept asking the same questions. So that model of research is very strong and is supported through that experience. But it really focuses on the qualitative aspects of integration. It has, though, created a phenomenal foundation for the application that we submitted that was successful with the National Housing Strategy. So the National Housing Strategy that we're starting just right now is going to focus on the data. So how do we begin to gather the data? And we are in the midst of developing a cross-organizational database that's going to begin to correlate data together in terms of housing outcomes together with program participation. It will tie it into changes in income over the 3-year tenancy. It's going to tie it into collecting data from families when they've moved beyond us. So that research piece is about to get quite large. Our community members, and specifically our tenants, in tenant exit interviews have spoken very much to what this model has meant to them. So community members, first and foremost, have cited the importance of the safe and the affordable housing, that they've enormously enjoyed living in a building where 15 other nations are living together with them, where others are experiencing what they're experiencing, where no question is a bad question and you can just come down and receive an answer or support in finding that answer. Furthermore, the tenants have spoken about how phenomenal it has been to have someone who does home visits with them and has tea with them and talks to them about their settlement plans and their long-term dreams. They've talked about the importance of the money management training that they've received and that they felt so much more equipped to navigate the banking systems or financial systems and to plan out their future. There's been always expressed a great amount of gratitude for the opportunity to live here, and just on the sense of the fact that they felt ready and equipped to face life in Canada beyond IRCOM. I'm quite confident that the IRCOM model could operate in communities of a variety of sizes. And the reason that I say that is because nothing that we do is proprietary. What we do and how we do it is easily transferable. It requires a community that is heavily invested in this work, and it requires a combination of facilities and people and partnerships. So long as there is a housing facility that has the necessary space on, for example, on the main floor that could allow for a classroom and office spaces and ways for tenants to come in and meet the staff that are on site to support them, that's really what's needed. At IRCOM, the housing and the provision of programs and services are inextricably linked. So if you separate the housing from the programs and services, it will not be the model. If you can provide the most incredible programs and services, and they will be extraordinarily valuable. If they're not provided in the facility where people live, it doesn't provide for that holistic wraparound approach. At the end of the day, there's no one there at 8 p.m. or at 10 p.m. or at 12 p.m. who's concerned with the well-being of the family. Part of what makes this model successful is that, in the most respectful way, we have a captive audience. They are here. They're here with us. They know where to find us. We know where to find them. Part of what makes this model truly effective and work is the diversity that is found within our community. So maybe I would add that as a condition of the success of the model is that it needs to have a very diverse and inclusive community. It cannot be an ethnocultural enclave. It cannot be focused on one community over others, because delivering programs in English requires the acquisition of language and localized vocabulary. That's part of what makes it successful, is that people are pushed to learn in a safe setting. So I would say that that diversity is important. The transferability of the IRCOM model would be limited if there isn't the presence of investment from multiple levels of government. Aside from private donors or funders, multiple governments have to be at the table. Often housing authorities need to be in the same conversation as Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. They have then a collective investment in it. They carry a different level of the responsibility for the projects. It's a cost-sharing mechanism, and it then, I believe, provides for the most successful foundation for a housing and program services project model. Through building legitimacy and trust within our community, IRCOM has risen to the role of being a significant advocate for our communities. That we've recognized that as an organization and as a community, we have a unique opportunity to impact the broader discourse, and that our work, although on a day-to-day basis primarily focuses downstream in terms of what families need, we are increasingly moving upstream to impact policy locally and nationally, to influence decision makers and to engage community members, not just those who already believe in the value of immigration as a strategy or as an approach to nation building, but more importantly, those who lie more in the middle and who continue to have questions or concerns that are inadequately addressed. We are, as an organization, truly invested in changing the broader narrative surrounding newcomers. So in the long term, our goal is that through some of our larger outreach efforts or bringing community members into IRCOM and IRCOM into community, is that we're shifting mindsets and helping established Canadians continue to open their hearts to newcomers. The goal in the long term is to foster a sense of belonging and a sense of inclusion, and a sense of agency in your own outcomes. So an understanding that to build bridges with the larger community is a process that starts from both ends, and we meet somewhere in the center. And the role of each of our families new to Canada isn't to sort of sit back and wait for the community to come and meet them, but it is to have the courage and the conviction to step forward and be vulnerable, share their story when they're ready, but to share their story, to rehumanize their journey. The underlying goals of immigration, including the resettlement of vulnerable refugees to Canada, is truly about nation building, and that they are part of the fabric, that they are the thread that is woven into the fabric of Canada, and that they are a critical component in helping build this nation and our collective future.